What's good, my fellow peasants and peasants? How you all doing? Episode Gladiolus, we're going to be reviewing it. What do I think of it? So before I start this video, because I've been asked to do this one, I'm going to quickly say this is going to be both a spoiler and a non-spoiler. I'm aware that there are some people who haven't played it yet, especially North America. You guys have had this collapse on you. The frustration is real. So there's still a lot of people who haven't played it, so I appreciate it. That's why I wanted to do this review quite late. So just to keep you guys safe, when this picture of shirtless Gladiolus is on the Cor Leonis side, it is non-spoiler territory, you're safe. And if anyone doesn't know, this is a new Gladiolus skin. It's supposedly called the Rugged Attire. Just straight up being shirtless. And you can play with that throughout. I think that's already out. When I move it over here, and the shirtless picture is on the Gladiolus side, we're getting into spoiler territory, so be warned. So let's get into it, guys. Spoiler free first. What do I think of episode Gladiolus? So many people have been messaging me, Pez, what do you think of it? Is it a good DLC? Did you enjoy it? No, was it what you wanted? I'm going to flat out say yes. Yes, guys, it was a really good DLC. Definitely everything I wanted. It had just enough story element in there for me to be happy and satisfied. The combat was by far the funnest thing. By far. I'm not much for combat. Honestly, I'm not. I'd say I almost enjoyed episode Gladiolus just as much as 15. Just as much. And that's a big deal considering there's a hell of a lot less mechanics. There's a hell of a lot of less to do with it. It kind of is more simplistic, but what the beauty of it was that it was a whole fresh mechanic. And honestly, it had about 10 hours of play value in it. Even though I only played it for 3 hours, I could go on and play it now. And it's a good thing because there is a game on there, a score game. You've got to try to score, I think it's rage points, skill points, combat points, some kind of points. But I will be going off and doing that because it was fun. There was this rage meter that you had to fill up, and you had to do that via blocking, but then you couldn't do too much blocking, even though that links into GLaDOS being the shield of the king. You had to attack because you had to get your specials up, and the monsters, they had different abilities. They could break shield, and it was just a really interesting new mechanic. So can't rate that highly enough, guys. But I'm going to address the biggest elephant in the room. So the DLC is going to be about 2 hours for most. I think the average was about 2 hours and 20. Some people will say you can do it in an hour and a half, but like fuck, you can do it properly. You kind of got to do the final trial to enjoy it. Honestly, do the final trial. It took me about nearly 3 hours to do it. I haven't played the mini game, so there's really about 4 hours of play in this DLC, which is healthy. A lot of people are saying it was too short, which is of course that comes at the end of every DLC. Is episode Gladiolus too short? Considering it's one of 6 DLCs. And when you chalk it up like that, this cost you at best a few dollars. Yes, you are definitely getting your money's worth. Anyone who's saying it needed to be longer is just straight up bullshitting. And that kind of answers the other question. Is the season pass worth it? I don't know whether or not I should get it. Definitely get the season pass. I'm going to address the elephant in the room I spoke about a minute ago. It is the concept of DLCs. Every single episode Gladiolus, there'll be comments in this video. This should have been in the game. This should have been in the game. And people are so stuck to that idea that this should have been in the game that they're just going to hate the DLC regardless. This should not have been in the game. There's no obligation for something like episode Gladiolus to be in the game. Chapter 13, on the other hand, that recently came out, should that have been in the game? 100% yes. The thing is, guys, Square Enix know it. Yeah, they know it. These were things that they wanted to get in, but they didn't have time. They ran out. And you can't get free. No, you can't get any fairer than them bringing those cutscenes out for free. They're free. So, the fact that even people saying Chapter 13 was too short. They've replayed Chapter 13. That's too short. Too short again. Come on. Cut the company a damn break. The game as a whole was very short story-wise. We know cutscenes and cinematics were criminally short. But as far as gameplay, there was more than enough in there to say that it was a AAA game that gave you your money's worth. And that's just a fact. If you didn't go off and do the optional stuff, then that's on you. But that's the serious rant out the way. That's as ranty as I'm going to get in this video, because I'm absolutely pumped after playing that. I cannot wait for Prompto and Ignis. This is set such a good precedence, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But that was just my biggest bugbear, is that we can't ever discuss DLC without someone. Wasn't long enough. But that's the thing about the story of this DLC. I'm going to talk about more on that on the spoiler side. But non-spoiler, it definitely answered some things, some questions I had. And that was good, because I really wasn't expecting, and I don't think anyone should have been expecting episode Gladiolus to really explain much. And I'll say why. It was a gameplay DLC. Square Enix, they said this is a gameplay DLC. This is for a new type of combat system. And it was very episode Dust Sky in feel. And like I said, it was very, very fun. It really was. And it wasn't supposed to be that story focused. That is why they've done in an interview, Tabata said that's why they've done the DLCs in this order. Gladiolus first, because it's the least impacting on story, but it's a gameplay experience. Promptos, and they said that Ignis is last because that is the most impactful on the story. That is deep. The fact that Prompto's trailer, when we saw it, it was absolutely pitched. This trailer came out recently. I'll stick it over here. Supercharged with emotion. Don't know what's going down in this trailer, but it's definitely going to be some huge story elements. Probably to do with Prompto's past and the MTs and his father. But the fact that Ignis is going to be even more impactful than that, we can really expect the next two DLCs to be the more story focused. Music in episode Gladiolus, absolutely spot on. Perfect rock adrenaline music. Anyone who says otherwise just really can't appreciate rock music in games, because this was a really fantastic OST. Booty on the big bitch. Battle on the big bridge. Big bitch. Big bridge. Really dope rendition of Gilgamesh's theme. The level design, Telpar Crag, it had a bit of backstory hidden in it, going into the summons and the gods, and it just looked really good. Visually, it was good. I found myself just looking at the trees, and now, as the light came down through the crag, you see the shadow effects. It's very impressive, and all in all, it was pretty varied throughout. So you're definitely gonna get your money's worth with this DLC. So I highly recommend whatever you've heard, because people in general, I'm going to say this, guys, are bitches about DLC. Gamers are bitches about DLCs. They just straight up are. It puts a bad flavour in some people's mouths. And because of that bad taste, they're just, nah. Never going to say anything nice about this DLC. I like DLC. I think it definitely has a place. And I think this is how DLC should be done. Totally fresh. It wasn't a rip-off of anything. It was new. It was innovative. But that's it. That's the end of the spoiler section. My advice is get it. Get the DLC. Definitely worth the few dollars that it realistically works out to be. And did I enjoy it? 100% yes. And I would rate it a banging 8.5 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10. I'm being pretty critical. The reason why I've given it 8.5 is really pathetic. But you're going to see that now as we shift over to the spoiler section. Okay, cards on the table. I'm going to kick off with the thing I absolutely love most. The Cor Leonis fight. Oh my goodness. I said it during the stream. You probably see it. He beat me up. He was tough, guys. I'm not joking. That was possibly one of the most memorable fights I've had. Everything about the Cor Leonis fight was just incredible, down to his mechanics of Cor Leonis. Now, his dodging was on point, the sword throwing, the fact that he would go into that mode where he would break your shield. And what's really interesting about that is he'd break your shield and not do much damage. You could just take the hit if you want, but he would always follow up with attacks. And it was really cleverly done in the way it felt like a back and forth duel. It really felt like a balls to the walls fight. On top of the tune that was playing, I got my ass whipped by X-Death. I got myself pummeled by Jekt. I thought I could take Ruby Weapon back in the day. Oh boy, was I mistaken. Indeed I was. I think even Sapphire, Emerald Weapon kicked my ass as well. I'm typically very bad at super bosses. I'm sure you guys could tell. But of all the Final Fantasy fights I've gone through and I've struggled through, Cor Leonis was so fun. And it's definitely going to be one I'm going to remember. The achievement I felt, it was intense, it was tough, my adrenaline was pumping, my hands were shaking. And yeah, you really had to adapt to the fight. It was not an easy fight. I know some people are going to say, oh, Cor Leonis was easy, I did it first time. They're bullshitting. I mean, I'm not saying they're bullshitting, they might be very good, but anyone can admit it was a tough fight. I was asking the live stream, and Everyone was saying 4 or 5 times, mostly 4 or 5 times for them to do it. Some were saying 10. Quite a lot of people saying it took them 10 times. Some people were even saying 27 times. Some people said, I just couldn't beat him. So, from what I saw in the live chat, everyone struggled with this fight because it's just a really tricky fight, I think. It was really fulfilling. I'm bad. It took me about 11 times and I'm pretty shit. So I think that you will be able to do it. Some people dropped it down to easy. I stayed on normal. Just a damn satisfying fight. That's what I'm saying. Oh, one of my favourites. But going on to the story side of episode Gladiolus, there was a lot there. It explained everything in there. It would have annoyed me if I played a DLC and it left more questions than it answered. It answered a lot. Down to finally really who Cor Leonis is. We found out that he was one of the youngest Kingsguard. Kingsguard, Crownsguard, King Shield. These fucking terms are confusing me now. Kingsguard, I think it is. He was one of the youngest. He started when he was 12. He became official when he was 14. Kind of like Luna, she became the first Oracle when she was 16. And he was the only person to survive Gilgamesh. The only person. So we had that backstory of Cor Leonis. But what was more interesting is I finally learned who Cor Leonis is as a character. I really couldn't work him out. And I feel like the DLC gave it some explanation. Cor Leonis takes Gilgamesh's arm, but he doesn't boast about it. He doesn't even tell Gladiolus. He actually tells Gladiolus he lost and Gilgamesh let him survive. He's very, very modest. Very modest. That's what I got from this. And the other thing is the way that he is very blunt. Do you want to do this or not? Cor Leonis is the kind of character who lets people find their own path, make their own decisions. He doesn't push people. He just has a very stoic, reserved, modest character. And it's really strange, but I feel like I get this guy now. I don't know if anyone agrees with me there. From this episode, I finally feel like I understand him. And there was some good banter between Cor Leonis and Gladiolus. But going over to Gladiolus, Gluteolus, Daddiolus. I liked his story. I thought this was good. A lot of people couldn't understand the point of it because when Gladiolus goes away and he comes back in 15, people saying there was no obvious change in Gladiolus. He goes away and he becomes one of the best King Shield ever. Well, why doesn't he seem all enlightened and powerful when he comes back? I think from the DLC what I saw was more than just power. It was more than just enhancing his strength. What came out of that was pretty profound. Gladiolus, after getting beaten by Ravus, he starts becoming... Now, he has that doubt. This episode is about Gladiolus dealing with his inner doubts, his inner fear of not being able to be strong enough for his friends to be able to do it. Sometimes the inner fear of failing so badly can really hold you back. And when Gladiolus got to that final fight with Gilgamesh, that was when he realised, boom, I'm just going to do my best. I don't think and that was profound enough for me. That was profound, a character arc, and when Gladiolus comes back, I think he follows that. I think he does his absolute best. I think Gladiolus is an absolute straight shooter in the game. Says things how they are. It's harsh, it's brutal at times, but yeah, he's doing what he does. It was about acceptance, so I like that. I don't think that there needed to be. He did need to come back with crazy powers and a red aura around him. Then with the rest of it, the cutscenes were really nice. There was quite a few in there, surprisingly. There was quite a lot, and they were beautiful. Very, very nice looking cutscenes. Really enjoyed those. Also with the story of the backstory of the Kingsguard, Gilgamesh was the first. And this is a side I kind of like that story with Gilgamesh in a way. Gilgamesh was the shield of the king for the first king 2,000 years ago. Now that implies, guys, Izunia. So if Izunia is the king that betrayed Arden, the jealous king, Gilgamesh was the shield of the king for that guy. So that's pretty, where does that set Gilgamesh off against Arden? I don't think they're really going to interact, so it doesn't really matter. But Gilgamesh has been residing over this Telpar Crag, which was once the base for the Kingsguard. And loads of people are coming through and trying to prove themselves worthy. And it seems like thousands have not been worthy. So it was a good story involving Gilgamesh and explained why he had his arm cut off. Again, it was Cor Leonis and who Gilgamesh is. But that's the thing, guys. They've done something that Final Fantasy hasn't done. I don't know whether I like this. I'd like some opinions on this. Usually with Gilgamesh, he has always been the same character. So he's been the character who's been lost. He appears in these different universes. He doesn't know where the fuck he is. He just wants to fight in every single universes. Fight the strongest in each universe. They kind of did away with that entire story of Gilgamesh, and they made a new one. They've actually plucked him and gave him a role, an identity, the first Kingsguard. And while I quite liked it, it's not Gilgamesh. I kind of would have liked Gilgamesh to stay his normal character rather than a plucked, a made-up character, because it also kind of puts out of context things like they had a lot of the lore, which I liked. The epics of Gilgamesh, they had Enkidu, they had his friend. They also had Humbaba. That's it. The Iron Giant that they fight. That is an ancient demon king, I believe, that Gilgamesh has to fight. So it was all in there. The epics of Gilgamesh, the lore was all in there. It was just plucked from the context of what we've usually had it and put in another one. It's not too bad. I kind of feel like, they plucked Gilgamesh and they kind of plucked Ultros as well. Ultros has a character and they showed it in King's Tale. But in the game, in the movie, Kingsglaive, he was a nobody. He was just kind of a mindless creature. In the Chef trailer, they turned him into soup. Ultros and Gilgamesh have characters. They just took those away, and they weren't really identifiable as the characters we know them as. And plus, Gilgamesh looks very different to how he usually looks. So what I'm trying to say, guys, is it's hard to feel the Gilgamesh. And finally, the ending. Oh, it was a beautiful ending. Just having the bros around the campfire again. I think Noctis was playing King's Knight, and there was all this banter about how he got his scar. And we found out Gladiolus got the first one when he was protecting. So this one he's got here by protecting Noctis from a bully when they were younger. So again, that tied even more into the bro feels. And then they're just talking and. Prompto's giving his banter about how it looks good because it's kind of parallel, and then there was this whole dialogue with Noctis, and they were saying about how long they've waited for Noctis. Gilgamesh has been waiting for Noctis, the chosen king, and Noctis, the cheeky bug, he's just like, what can I say? I'm worth the wait. So it rounded out really nice on some more bro feels, and he's got that Genji sword. Again, I said Gilgamesh has always given us Genji items throughout the series, so the fact that the sword is a Genji sword, that was pretty cool as well. Faithful to the lore, really faithful to the backstory of Eos. It probably could have gone more into explaining why it is that he kills them all, why there's so many King Shield who have failed. Now, have they all gone there? Because it seemed to me like it was more of a war scene. Now, all of the people there were wearing old, rustic kind of armour. That bit is a bit confusing. It seems more like a war field than people throughout the centuries have gone there to try to prove themselves worthy. Maybe not. I mean, I suppose it'd be kind of impossible to design every single character different. Oh yes, I'm also forgetting there was some backstory with Clarus. That was really nice. So why did I score at 8.5 out of 10? Yeah, like I said, it's pathetic. It's kind of the Gilgamesh thing. I think I would have liked it to be more identifiably Gilgamesh. There was that theory that because his arm was chopped off, that was the ones in Pythios. Obviously, that theory is... But really fun theory anyway, that Perona came up with. Really enjoyed that. And I kind of would like that more. If he'd have been an ancient Sumerian king, or a king of Solheim, he is a Sumerian king in the epics. And that's the thing, Gilgamesh has always been a king. So there was an opportunity for them to stick with that story, but they kind of missed it. In the end, Gilgamesh deems Gladiolus worthy. He goes on his way. Gilgamesh wasn't some kind of hidden character. That is why I'm scoring this highly. I was really hoping they would dodge any cheesy ass bullets. So many people going, Pez, when are you doing your Cor Leonis' Gilgamesh theory? I'm not doing it. Because I don't think, I don't think Cor Leonis is Gilgamesh. I didn't think that. Obviously, the trailer led you to believe it, and they kind of hinted at it. At first, I was like, whoa. I was like, no, it's too obvious. They could have gone that route. I'm really glad they didn't. I'm really trying to think of any other negatives, and I'm struggling, guys. It could possibly have gone into further explaining some of the summons. It really could have... What I was thinking when I was walking around is a lot of the aerial, it was just rock. And they were kind of like these party streamers, and I was thinking, oh, we're going to get a bit of story here. I think there could have been things like murals, or tomes, or books, or carvings on the wall. Because if these Kingsguard have been there since 2000, this is a 2,000-year-old site. This was back during the days of the Great War of Old, or very close to it, and the collapse of Solheim and the reforming of 4 new nations. I think they really could have done that, used that more to their advantage. To tell even more story, because 15's had this whole hidden story theme going on. I was really expecting to go in and find some hidden story. That's why I was trying to collect all the items, because at the same time I'm looking around. There was really not much there in terms of extra layers, and I feel like if you're gonna go into a DLC that's in a 2,000-year-old site with a 2,000-year-old Gilgamesh, who's around the time Arden was betrayed. Yeah, you could have squeezed a little bit more story in Square. Yeah, you could have done it. So that's all I'm going to say. The DLC for me was almost perfect. Everything that my expectations hoped it would be. It could have just had a bit more story. But again, I've said why. And it wasn't really set out to be a story. And that's why when I look at Prompto and Ignis's episode having even more story, infinitely more impacting story, I'm hype. I cannot wait for those DLCs, and that's my review. That is my I thought I'd sound more objective and critical, but now I'm actually sat here in front of the mic. I'm actually realising how much more I enjoyed it. In fact, I want to go play it again. So let me know what you guys think. What do you think of the DLC? I've been seeing just some negatives, some vapid negatives about, the game wasn't long enough, and I've spoke about it. Or we shouldn't have to pay for this. It should be longer than 3 to 4 hours. My metric is this has to be 15 hours long. It has to explain Luna, and it has to have a Luna and Noctis cutscene, and it has to explain why Ravus did this, and Gladiolus did this, and Arden did this, and it also has to have more Iris Demon Slayer has to happen, and there has to be a Dark World Leslam, all in episode Gladiolus, or I'm not going to be happy. No. Fuck, no. So, just looking at the episode, really enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe there's some critical points you could put below on what wasn't so great. But yeah, combat, check. Story, check. Visuals, check. Cutscene, check. Enjoyment, checkity check check. Chiroo. Until the next video, guys.